Imagine for a moment that you are in the heart of a civilization that dominates everything, yet feels like it lacks a soul. We are in the 1st century before our era, in a Rome that has stopped being a small village of shepherds to become the undisputed master of the Mediterranean Sea. However, in the midst of its military and architectural splendor, there is a void. The Romans look toward Greece with a mixture of admiration and envy, for they know that although they have conquered their lands, the Greeks possess something they have not yet managed to match: a divine origin narrated in immortal poems. This is where Publius Vergilius Maro enters the scene, a man of fragile health and astonishing sensitivity, who receives the most ambitious commission in Western literary history. His mission is not simply to write a book, but to invent a past that justifies the present and gives meaning to the future of an entire empire. The Aeneid is not just an epic poem, it is a piece of cultural engineering designed to connect the mud of war with the stars of divine destiny. To understand the magnitude of this work, we must first understand the context of its creation. Emperor Augustus, after decades of bloody civil wars that bled Rome dry, desperately needed a narrative of unity. He needed the Romans to believe that their dominance was not a product of chance or brute force, but the fulfillment of a 1,000-year-old prophecy. Virgil accepted this challenge and dedicated the last 11 years of his life to polishing every verse with an almost obsessive focus. It is said that he wrote very few verses a day, spending hours refining them like someone carving a diamond. This dedication speaks to us of an author who did not seek quick fame, but absolute perfection, a quality that literary critics call labor limae, which in Latin means the work of the file, that slow process of wearing down the rough edges of a work until it shines on its own. The story begins not with a victory, but with a catastrophic defeat. Virgil takes a secondary character from Homer's Iliad, named Aeneas, and makes him the protagonist of his epic. Aeneas is a Trojan prince who, while his city burns under Greek flames, receives a direct order from the gods. He must flee, not out of cowardice, but because he carries the future of a new nation on his shoulders. This premise was revolutionary for its time. While Greek heroes like Achilles sought personal glory or like Odysseus sought a return to their home, Aeneas is a hero driven by duty. Here we introduce a fundamental concept that the Romans called pietas. We must not confuse this word with modern religious piety. For a Roman, pietas was supreme loyalty to family, the fatherland, and the gods, even above personal desires. Aeneas is, therefore, the first modern hero who suffers to fulfill a responsibility he did not choose. Aeneas' journey is an odyssey divided into 12 books. The first 6 imitate the structure of Odysseus' travels, full of monsters, storms, and divine encounters. But there is a vast psychological difference. While Odysseus wants to return to what he already knows, Aeneas travels toward the unknown, toward a land he has never seen called Italy. In Book 1, we find him shipwrecked on the coast of Carthage in North Africa. It is there that one of the most intense encounters in all of world literature takes place. Aeneas meets Dido, the founding queen of Carthage. Dido is a character of a psychological depth that is centuries ahead of her time. She is a widow who has sworn fidelity to her late husband, but who falls head over heels for the charisma and pain of Aeneas. The relationship between Aeneas and Dido is the tragic heart of the first half of the work. Virgil uses this romance to explore the conflict between individual love and collective destiny. Dido offers Aeneas a home, a kingdom, and rest. For a moment, the hero seems to forget his mission, but the gods do not allow him to stop. Mercury, the divine messenger, descends from the heavens to remind Aeneas that his destiny is not to be king of Carthage, but the ancestor of the Romans. Aeneas' departure is cruel and silent. There is no great argument, only a somber obedience. Dido's reaction is that of a broken woman who passes from love to absolute hatred, casting a curse that, according to myth, would give rise to the future and bloody Punic Wars between Rome and Carthage. Dido's tragic end is one of the most powerful scenes in classical narrative, as it marks not only the end of a woman, but the birth of a historical enmity that would define the Roman character. This sacrifice of personal happiness in favor of the state is a theme that resonates strongly in current studies of political psychology. Experts suggest that Virgil was sending a clear message to his contemporaries. The empire requires human sacrifices, not only on the battlefield, but in the privacy of hearts. But to truly understand the depth of this sacrifice, we must accompany Aeneas in Book 6, which is considered by many to be the climax of the work. Aeneas descends to the underworld, to Hades, to consult with his deceased father, Anchises. This journey to the depths of the earth is a metaphor for introspection and self-knowledge. In the underworld, Virgil presents us with a vision of the universe that mixes mythology with the philosophy of metempsychosis, which is a technical word for the transmigration of souls or reincarnation. Anchises shows Aeneas a parade of souls waiting to be born in the future. They are the great men who will make Rome great, from Romulus to Augustus himself. This scene is one of the most brilliant propaganda tools ever created, but it is also a profound reflection on the continuity of life and history. Here, one of the most famous phrases of the work is pronounced, stating that while other peoples may excel in art or science, Rome's mission is to rule the nations, to impose the habit of peace, to spare the conquered, and to battle down the proud. However, after this glorious vision, Aeneas's return to the world of the living occurs through a very strange gate, the Ivory Gate, which is the gate of false dreams. Literary critics have debated for millennia why Virgil decided that his hero should exit through the gate of lies after having received the most important prophecy of his life. Some suggest that this is a subtle sign of skepticism on the author's part, a note of ambiguity suggesting that perhaps all that imperial glory is just a necessary but fictitious illusion. This ability of Virgil to insert doubts in the middle of an officially commissioned poem is what elevates him from being a simple court poet to a universal genius. The second half of the Aeneid, from Book 7 to 12, changes tone radically. We are no longer on a journey of adventure, but in a brutal war for the land of Italy. Aeneas arrives at the mouth of the Tiber River and meets King Latinus, who is willing to give him the hand of his daughter Lavinia. But peace is sabotaged by the fury of men and envious goddesses. Here appears the great antagonist of the work, Turnus, the leader of the Rutulians. Turnus is the dark reflection of Aeneas. If Aeneas represents pietas and self-control, Turnus represents furor, which is that unbridled passion, anger, and violence that knows no limits. It is fascinating to analyze Virgil's deconstruction of war. Unlike other authors who glorify combat as a sport of honor, Virgil describes the pain of mothers, the death of young people before their time, and the absurdity of destruction. There is a concept that the author constantly repeats, sunt lacrimae rerum, which literally means there are tears in things. It is an idea suggesting that human suffering is permeated into the very essence of reality. Every time a young warrior falls on the battlefield, whether Trojan or Italian, Virgil stops to tell us a bit about their life, who their parents were, and what dreams they had. This humanizes the enemy and turns Aeneas's final victory into something bittersweet. The war culminates in a final duel between Aeneas and Turnus. This scene is crucial for understanding the ethical message of the work. Turnus has been defeated, he is wounded on the ground and asks for mercy. Aeneas, for a moment, hesitates. The hero who has been defined by his righteousness is about to forgive his enemy. But then he sees that Turnus is wearing the sword belt of Pallas, a young friend of Aeneas whom Turnus killed cruelly. In a fit of rage, Aeneas kills Turnus. The poem ends abruptly with Turnus' soul fleeing complainingly toward the shadows. There are no parades, there is no triumphant conclusion about the founding of Rome, only a final act of violence. This abrupt ending has puzzled readers for 2,000 years. In fact, it is known that Virgil, on his deathbed, asked for the manuscript of the Aeneid to be burned because he did not consider it finished. Fortunately for humanity, Emperor Augustus disobeyed his will. But one must wonder if the work is truly incomplete or if that dark ending was exactly what Virgil wanted to convey. By ending with the death of Turnus, the author reminds us that even the most glorious peace and the vastest empire are built on the blood and pain of individuals who had their own names and hopes. To understand this from a modern perspective, we can look toward neuroscience and the psychology of trauma. Human behavior experts explain that acts of violence, even those considered justified by destiny or duty, leave an indelible mark on the individual's psyche. Aeneas ends the work not as a radiant god, but as a man trapped by his emotions, which makes him profoundly human. This connection with human fragility is what allows a work written 2,000 years ago to remain relevant in the 21st century. But the influence of the Aeneid is not limited to its narrative. Its impact on popular culture and the formation of Western identity is incalculable. During the Middle Ages, Virgil was seen almost as a prophet or a magician. His fourth eclogue, where he spoke of the birth of a child who would bring a new golden age, was interpreted by Christians as a prophecy of the birth of Jesus, which granted the poet a status of pagan sanctity. Dante Alighieri, the great Italian poet, chose him as his guide through hell and purgatory in the Divine Comedy, recognizing him as the ultimate authority on human reason and literary perfection. In our technological age, the legacy of the Aeneid manifests in subtle but powerful ways. When we see great cinematic sagas about the fall of empires or the rise of predestined heroes who must sacrifice everything, we are seeing the DNA of Virgil's work. The concept of the hero who carries the weight of the world on his shoulders, the refugee seeking a new home, and the conflict between personal passion and the benefit of the group are the pillars of contemporary narrative. The Aeneid teaches us that human progress is never free and that every great collective achievement has a hidden individual price. Even in today's politics and in the way nations build their own foundational myths, we can find traces of Virgil's technique. He understood before anyone else that power needs beauty to be legitimate. A law can compel, but a poem can convince. The Aeneid is a reminder that stories are what really govern the world, for they are what shape our perception of who we are and where we come from. This inevitably leads us to another crucial aspect of the work, which is its treatment of nature and landscape. Virgil did not just describe places, but endowed them with a spirit, what the Romans called the genius loci. The forests, rivers, and caves of Italy are not simple decorative settings. They are active characters participating in the plot. This ecological sensitivity, so to speak, resonates today with our growing concern for our relationship with the environment. For Virgil, the land Aeneas seeks is not just a political territory, it is a living organism with which the new people must enter into harmony. But to understand this fully, we must look toward the complexity of his secondary characters. We cannot talk about the Aeneid without mentioning figures like the Cumaean Sibyl, the priestess who guides Aeneas to the underworld. She represents ancient knowledge, the connection with the divine that is both terrifying and necessary. Or tragic figures like Nisus and Euryalus, two young soldiers whose friendship and premature death serve to illustrate the beauty and horror of youth lost in war. Each of these characters is a piece of an immense mosaic that attempts to capture the totality of the human experience. The deconstruction of symbolism in the work is also fascinating. Aeneas' shield, which appears in Book 8, is a direct response to Achilles' shield in the Iliad. While the Greek shield represented the cosmos and daily life, the Roman shield represents the future history of Rome. Aeneas places on his shoulders a shield containing images of events that he himself does not understand, symbolizing how we, as individuals, are often carriers of historical processes that transcend us. This is a powerful metaphor for responsibility and human ignorance in the face of the flow of time. Virgil's linguistic style also deserves detailed analysis. The use of dactylic hexameter, the rhythm in which the work is written, produces a hypnotic effect that the ancients considered capable of elevating the spirit. Every word is placed with such precision that the sound reinforces the meaning. When Virgil speaks of a storm, the rhythm of the verses becomes agitated and sharp. When he speaks of the peace of the fields, the verse flows smoothly. This technical mastery is what makes the work untranslatable in its entirety, as much of its magic lies in the music of the original Latin. This allows us to reflect on the importance of the written word in the construction of reality. Virgil did not just describe Rome, in a sense, he created it. Before the Aeneid, the Romans had an amalgam of contradictory and fragmented myths. After Virgil, they had a coherent family tree and a defined historical mission. This demonstrates the power of narrative to provide cohesion to a diverse and often divided society. In a modern world where common narratives seem to be fragmenting, returning to the Aeneid is an exercise in understanding how the fabric of a civilization is built and maintained. The current relevance of the work is also found in its treatment of the concept of the stranger. Aeneas is fundamentally a war refugee. He arrives in a new land seeking asylum and a place to start over. The tension between the newcomers and the local inhabitants, the mutual distrust, and the eventual integration through conflict and marriage are themes that dominate our daily news. Virgil proposes that identity is not something static, but something forged through the encounter, sometimes violent and sometimes peaceful, between different cultures. Rome is not the result of racial purity, but of the mixture of Trojans, Latins, and other peoples of Italy. If we explore the philosophical aspect, we see that the Aeneid is a bridge between the ancient world of heroes and the new world of social ethics. Aeneas often feels tired, he wants to give up, but he finds strength in a source that is not the ego, but faith in something bigger than himself. This is a lesson in resilience that modern psychologists study as one of the keys to overcoming great adversity. The ability to find meaning in suffering is what allows Aeneas to keep going after losing his city, his wife, his father, and his beloved Dido. The work also invites us to reflect on the nature of power. Augustus wanted a poem that would glorify him, but Virgil gave him a mirror where power is seen laden with melancholy. Being the leader of an empire does not mean living in an eternal banquet, but making difficult decisions that often leave scars on the soul. This humanized view of the ruler is a necessary corrective against any form of blind authoritarianism. The true leader is the one who feels the weight of every life lost under their command. As we move closer to the deepest corners of the text, we discover that Virgil was also a master of suspense and atmosphere. The descent into Hades is full of sensory descriptions that have influenced all modern horror and fantasy cinema. The sound of the river, the cold of the shadows, the laments of the souls who cannot cross because they have not received burial. These elements touch universal fears that human beings have had since the beginning of time and will continue to have as long as they are mortal. The Aeneid is ultimately a reminder that we are temporal beings caught in a whirlwind of forces we do not always understand. But within that whirlwind, we have the capacity to act with dignity, to fulfill our duty, and to leave a legacy that others can follow. Virgil tells us that although our individual lives are brief, we are part of a much longer history. Each of us is, in our own way, an Aeneas, fleeing our own burning Troys, carrying the weight of the past on our backs and seeking on the horizon a land where we can build a future. The beauty of this poem lies in the fact that it does not offer easy solutions. It does not tell us that everything will turn out fine in the end. On the contrary, it shows us that even in victory there is loss, and even in glory there is sadness. But that honesty is precisely what makes the work so comforting. By reading the Aeneid, we feel less alone in our own struggles, for we see that the same dilemmas that afflict us today were already explored with unsurpassed depth by a poet 2,000 years ago. Looking back at the immense literary landscape we have traversed, from the flames of Troy to the battlefields of Italy, we realize that Virgil's true mission was not just to sing of arms and the man, as his famous opening verse says, but to sing of the human condition in all its complexity. The Aeneid is a monument of words that has stood the test of time better than marble or bronze, reminding us that as long as there is someone willing to read and dream, Aeneas's journey will never truly end. This deep exploration leaves us with a sense of wonder at art's ability to capture the essence of an era and at the same time speak directly to the hearts of all eras to come. The Aeneid remains one of the pinnacles of human thought and creation, a beacon that continues to illuminate the dark alleys of history and our own souls. It is a poem that demands everything from us but gives back multiplied in wisdom and beauty, demonstrating that great literature is that which not only entertains us, but transforms us and forces us to look at the world with new eyes, more compassionate and more aware of our shared destiny. With this, I conclude this journey through one of the most important works in history. If you have felt moved by Aeneas's dilemmas, by Dido's pain, or by Anchises' vision, it is because Virgil achieved his goal: to write something that was not just for his time, but for forever. The next time you think about the origin of our culture or the sacrifices required to build something lasting, remember the shadow of that Trojan who, between fire and sea, decided that the future was worth the effort of being dreamed. Thank you for joining me in this comprehensive analysis of Virgil's masterpiece.